damn it. It's thrilling to be here. And I'm a big fat liar, okay? I love lying. Come on. Don't you love lying? It's really fun. It is. If you're new, don't listen to this. I love lying. That's it. And that collides with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an honest program. So, you know, I work with my sponsor. She's real honest to me. And but if one slips out, you know, it's irresistible sometimes. My deal is I'll let you know. And Marilyn has been helpful to me with this. She's gotten me in a corner with a switchblade lots of times over this topic. Now that's a lie, okay? That woman's never even seen a switchblade, if you know her. And I'm going to move on now because she's my ride home and I don't feel like walking. So I'm an alcoholic. My name is Sia. My sobriety date's January 30th, 1983. I thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous, for that. Yeah. That's you guys. And, you know, my remember is busted. I ain't going to remember with sufficient force the remorse, horror, and hopelessness the night before. How am I going to remember it for 38 years and 10 months and, 13 days? I don't know. I ain't. And so I am grateful to you, Alcoholics Anonymous, because you keep me on the straight and you keep me on the narrow. And I want to thank Bob for inviting me to share. And I want to thank Bob for making the mistake of saying, is there a step you'd like to talk about? I want to thank you for trusting me there. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank, I know Cindy was on the committee and Marnie was on the committee. I want to thank Marnie for those damn cookies. She gave cookies that she made herself, staying up all night for 5 days or something like that. And they were like these killer cookies. And I'm an alcoholic, and I ate them all in one sitting like a beast, you know. And I was calling my sponsor. I was texting her, actually. You got any more of those cookies, you know? And they asked, do you have anything special, like water you want to drink? And I had a water. I drank all my waters because I'm an alcoholic, all on the same night. So then I texted Henry. Hey, Henry, when you come tomorrow, if you can you get me more waters? At 1:30 in the morning, hotel security calls me and says, there's a man here who tried to leave a package. We don't accept packages. And he got mad and he ran away. And I'm like, Henry, rock on. Henry and me are engaged. We are. I asked Billy Ann if he'd marry me. You know, he turned me down flat. So Henry and me, we're on. We are on, Henry. So what else can I say here? I want to thank the wonderful speakers. Dang. You know, the alcoholic in me loved those speakers. They were like World Series, you know, like, okay, so it's, 2 outs, last inning, 2 strikes, bases loaded. Every dang one of them hits it out of the park. And then there's me. And this is where my ego, see, I'm allergic to alcohol. My ego is even more allergic to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so last night when people were coming up to me and saying, whoa, I would not want to be the speaker after those guys. Yeah, thank you very much. You know who you are. You will be on my suicide note. And so my ego is saying, you know, you need to get a fast train or car or horse out of town here now, you know. And it was talking at me, and I packed 3 times last night. But here's the thing. I'm standing on. I ain't leaving. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I get to that place. If you're new, I'm very weird. You got every hope in hell of getting sober here, if I can be sober. Because this is where my mind goes. Get me out of here, you know? And I take geographics. I ain't taking one. Suicide's a geographic of mine. It's the quickest way out of town for a lot of us. And, I'm just as terrible at dying as I am at living, and that worked in my favor. And so I'm going to stay the course here. But I also, what I feel like? Here's what my ego feels like, actually. There was this turkey that supposedly wrote this letter to this late-night talk show host around Thanksgiving. It was a very succinct letter, and it simply went like this. It was, to America, to people celebrating Thanksgiving, I hate you. And that is how my ego felt about these speakers. It's impossible. It's impossible, And here's how I feel about them, paying that 12-step call on me. And here's what I decided to do. I'm going to lower your expectations right now. I ain't got the cool peas in the hat story that Mike has. I ain't got it. And I ain't got the cool John living in his car, starving to death, but damn it, he's working his program no matter what story. I ain't got it. I ain't got it. And I ain't got the Don story of moving an ancient hatred to a current love with his father-in-law. I ain't got that story either. So I thought about this, and I got a little story here. It's my best shot. I got notes. Nobody else had notes. Nobody else said they were scared. Please don't hurt me, okay? And then there's that thing back there. Damn, staring at myself? Give me a break, A weapon of mass destruction right there. Okay. So I came up with my little story. I'm going to lay it on you. I was married to a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, was being the operative word. And we were both secretaries at different times of the same speaker meeting. And we had trouble in our marriage. There was something fatally wrong with our marriage. And we went into marriage counselors for years together. And this one marriage counselor, like about the third year in the middle of a session, stood up. I guess he surrendered, is what he did. He stood up and he said, you know what? I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know how to help you. I can't help you. Good luck. Something like that. Maybe he left the business. I don't know. And at that point, my former husband decided to leave the marriage. The way he left the marriage is he went upstairs, because we had this kind of dwelling where it was an upstairs and a downstairs. So he's up there planning his next move, and I'm downstairs planning mine. And I was looking at my marriage contract, and if you're married, maybe your marriage contract has this little clause in it too. Until death do you part. Do I look like I'm dead? You know what I mean? So that's where I was. And so my plan is I'm going to wait till he goes to sleep, and I'm going to sneak upstairs, and I'm going to stab him to death. That was my plan. And if you're new, this is why it's a good idea to have a sponsor. And this is why I was taught, tell your sponsor your plans. And I'm going to tell my sponsor my plans because I trust my sponsor. Because I see my sponsor do stuff I can't do. That happened to me immediately when I came in Alcoholics Anonymous. That I'm not able to stop drinking. You aren't able to stop drinking. You didn't quit drinking. Something happened here, and you're not drinking. And you're able to be of service and care for your family and be of service in AA. And so I called my sponsor because I've seen her do stuff I cannot do that I know as an alcoholic she cannot do. It is this thing we have talked about here, this idea of God, whatever that is to any of us. And if the God word is anathema to you, if you're new, that's cool. It's a word. It's a placeholder word. And I was taught that God can be he or she or it, that God is anonymous in Alcoholics Anonymous, like I'm anonymous at the level of press, radio, and films. And that we don't ask you what the label on your God is any more than we ask you what the label on your bottle was. This is what I was taught. And so it is this thing that happens here. And I understand that. So, things went on, time fast forward, nobody drank over this marriage ending, and I worked my program, and I guess he worked his program. He moved to New York, but I still had a resentment, like Don said, with his father-in-law. And a couple years later, I guess, he comes back to take a cake at this same meeting. How convenient. And I'm looking at him, and my resentment's looking at him, taking this cake, And when he finishes taking the cake and saying what he's going to say, he turns to me in a room, not this big, but pretty big, where everybody knows us, and everybody knows we're divorced. And he says, Sia, he speaks directly to me, Sia, you have a great AA program. I know you do. And I know it in ways I probably never told you. And I want you to know it. Damn, Jennifer, what'd you do here? Cursed me. I don't want to cry either. And so I got up. I found myself spontaneously getting up, getting out of my seat, going up there to the podium, and I hugged him. He hugged me. And all that resentment, it just like evaporated. And then it was a miracle to me. And it is to him. It was to him. And that's not the end of the story. So we became friends again, and some short time later, I guess 6 months later, he was diagnosed with a fatal illness. And Jennifer, I'm going to kill you. And he asked me, what he had was end-stage liver disease. Many of us are familiar with that. And you get yourself on a transplant list and you pray that you get it in time. And he was in that weird twilight zone of this fugue where, you have hepatic encephalopathy. If you don't know what that is, it means the liver's dying. It cannot remove the toxins from your body. And you lose your mind. And he would lose his mind from time to time. And he needed folks to look after him. And so he asked me if I'd come and look after him for a week. I cared for him, but I didn't want to do it. This is an honest program. I was scared to do it. I mean, do I look like Florence Nightingale? Come on. And Bob knows this story, and I've told this story at the Dot. So I couldn't do it, but I knew me and God could. And folks in the meeting they wrote him all these letters wishing him well. So I had this bag of letters. I go to New York. And it was really hard. There were a couple things that made the week so difficult. First of all, I had been unrealistic, and I had agreed to speak at the Atlantic Group, which is the counterpart to the Pacific Group. And I couldn't do it. I realized he was much sicker than I understood, that I couldn't leave him. And I kept putting it off, though. You ever do that? And so when I finally told the secretary, it was the same day of the meeting, like the afternoon. You all probably been secretaries of speaker meetings. I've been in that position where somebody cancels kind of last minute, and it's kind of, you sweat it. And so actually the secretary is a friend of Marilyn's, and the meeting was upset at me, and I don't blame him. That was not cool. So that was a bad move. And then my dearest friend in sobriety lives in New York, and I said something off to her, and she wasn't speaking to me. And then there's Bob. And Bob was like when hepatic encephalopathy would hit him, like he bit a policeman. Okay, I love that. He bit a policeman. And then he would do stuff in the night. He would kind of lose his mind. One time that will remain forever in my memory is I felt something heavy fall on my head. I was sleeping in the middle of the night. And so I woke up screaming. It was Bob. He got up in the night and he sat on my head. I mean, if you know it's coming, I guess you can take it. But, so I start screaming, and he's like in this Zen state or something in his encephalopathy, and he goes, "I'm just resting." So it was kind of crazy, but it was terrible. And so at the end of that week, or however long I was there, it felt like a year. You know what I felt like about as comfortable in New York as I imagine Osama bin Laden would have felt at a certain time in history. It was terrible. It was terrible. And then to cap it all off, the bastard lived. Come on, you know what I mean? Unbelievable. And so here's the point of this. Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me that I am going to do well here. If you're new, I don't know if you're going to go this way, but this is the way I went, where I am the punchline to my own sobriety. I cannot take myself seriously. I take Alcoholics Anonymous very seriously, and that's how it goes. And so that was an important thing for me to learn. And that's my story. That's my story. Don't hurt me. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about step 10, which is what I hope to talk to you about. And I'm going to give a little homage to Larcene. You know, I wish she would have been here. We wish she would have been here. She's where she's supposed to be, doing what she's supposed to do, and prayers are going there. And but when she shares, sometimes what Larcene says is her sponsor told her one time, if you're at a podium, you're either going to be a good example or a very loud warning. And I am deliberately choosing this step, and delighted I can talk about it. You may not be, because I'm a very loud warning about this step, if you're new. I've been given a lot of latitude in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am a reluctant student, a poor pupil, and somebody says it works in spite of you. I don't know which of you guys said that cool thing, but it's true in my case. I participate in my sobriety, so don't misunderstand me if you're new. I participate, but I have a very low IQ in terms of spiritual. I'm still emotionally illiterate to some extent, and perhaps still spiritually bankrupt. I don't know, but in any case. So with step 10, I'm no expert if you're new. I want to say that. I'm just talking about my experience. What I am aware of is that there are 3 types of inventory in Alcoholics Anonymous in the 12 steps. There's the 4-step inventory, which Mike and Ralph talked about beautifully. Although I will say, Mike, you should have gone into a little more detail with the sex inventory. This just would have helped, you know, just would have helped. There are members of the audience, I being one, who am very interested in this area. And I had a lot of problems. I'm somebody, I should still be in custody, I bet. I'm alcoholic. I'm like bulimic. I'm a sex maniac, I think. And so if I come to your bed, I'm coming there with a bottle and a big sandwich. You know, just weird. just weird. And I told Bob and Mike this great thing. I got to tell you this great thing. You know, we get these great little stories. I don't know if you know Liz LaPreste. She's no longer with us, but she's this wonderful member of AA in West LA where I live. And Liz, as she got older, would say that her sex inventory started to become her gratitude list. That's good, isn't it? That's so good. God bless you, Liz. I hope you're dialed in. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to talk briefly about this 4th step. It was covered, but I'm just, because it ties into what I'm talking about. So this is my 3rd sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. In my 2nd sobriety is when I did my first 4th step. And it was a massacre, really. You know, it was all their part. It was... I'm a person who hates people without a program. And I hated everyone I ever met, apparently. And I remembered every one of you sons of bitches, you know. And I did my inventory. And by the way, I have geriatric Tourette's. Forgive me. I swear sometimes. And I wrote them all down, man. I wrote them down with a vengeance. And it was 168 pages long, this inventory. There is someone in this room who wrote one 4 pages longer than that. Broke my record. I, who have come to the pitcher's mound here, or the batter's mound, or whatever the hell it is, with a plastic bat, thank you very much, compared to these other World Series. Okay, so anyway, someone in this room has 4 more pages than me, I know, because I heard the 5th step. God bless you. I'm glad we got past that. You are not allowed to drink again. We ain't doing that again. Anyway, so it was 168 pages long, and I waited to read it to somebody that I hoped I would never see again. Okay. And I was seeing somebody at the time, and I broke up with them. They broke into my place to read my 4-step. Then they wanted to kill me, probably because of what I said about them in my 4-step. I don't know. I chased them with a knife, which I can do. And so, you can kind of get why my second sobriety didn't really gel, okay? I was living in London at the time. I waited until I went to the United States. I waited until I went to Oklahoma. There was a meeting in Oklahoma, and I asked this woman if she would listen to my 5th step. And she volunteered, and God bless that woman. I do not remember her name. And it took about 8 hours. God bless her. About 8 hours, and at the end of it, her hair was kind of messed up. And she was this little German lady. And so here's what she said to me. She said one thing to me that entire time. She looked at me and she said, with her little German accent, "Well, you don't have to be a goddamn pervert anymore." That's what she said. I felt loved in Alcoholics Anonymous. What can I say? There's a lot of ways to say you don't have to live like that anymore. That was hers. So, okay. But I'm going to tell you, as bad as that inventory of mine was, when I left there, I'm like a religious refugee. I did not have a good experience in the church in which I was raised. If you're new, there was nothing wrong with that church. What I've been taught in AA is, in God's world, everything is exactly as it's supposed to be, except me. I'm the one that's got to change. But when I left that inventory process, I distinctly remember thinking, I can go to heaven. And I so connected with that desperate part of myself that felt so irredeemable, so unforgivable. So somebody up here said, I hope you learn to love yourself. Alcoholics Anonymous loved me first, and I got to love you back. Alcoholism, this spiritual malady, never let me know I was loved. I was loved. I didn't know that. I'm glad I've lived to the other side of myself. It does that thing the book talks about, a new pair of glasses. It's a remarkable thing. I had an old-timer say to me, see, every experience you have is a spiritual experience, but you just don't understand it yet. And I don't. And I've gotten better at that. It's wacko sometimes. I'm going to give you an example. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but I was in the airport a couple weeks ago and a couple months ago. And, they've been severely understaffed. A lot of industries are. And so I walk in this airport. I know my family's driving from a long distance to pick me up. And there were like 300 people in line to check their bag. So right away I knew I ain't making my flight. And I felt really concerned for my poor family about this. I turned to get a bag tag or something, and I lost my balance. And I fell, you've noticed I'm tall, from a great height, okay? And folks were concerned. It was really nice. A couple people rushed up. An airport personnel person rushed up. And because I had fallen down, I didn't really hurt myself, but it was spectacular looking, I guess. And so because I fell down, they put me pretty much in front of the line, like 25th. So I made my flight. And here's the point of that. It took me about a week, but here's where I got to, and maybe you won't get here. I realized I think God pushed me down because I made my flight. It's a very creative way of living, Alcoholics Anonymous. And by the way, if I start to hear of a spate of people falling down in the airport, I'm going to know what you guys got up to. So it's that kind of thing. Anyway. So I did that inventory, and then in this sobriety, I got sober in the Pacific group, and they have a custom there that you have to finish your 4th and 5th step by your 1st year, or you don't get to take your cake. And Clancy was my sponsor, and I was afraid of him, so that was helpful too. So I had this peer pressure to finish it, and I have turned out to be the type of person that needs that kind of supervision or herd instinct or something. Or I kind of go that way. And So I did this thing. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember a thing about reading that to him. I was so scared. And what I do remember, what was really important to me, first of all, in retrospect, I was not particularly honest in that inventory because I had done this huge one before. I didn't recognize that, but he clearly did. Because I changed sponsors when I was a year sober, and when I was talking to him about it, his closing remarks to me were, "You're a liar," and he hung up on me. Well, I hated his guts for like 3 years, until one day I realized he's right. I was a liar. I did not do, he knew I had not been complete in that inventory. And I have made that up, so to speak, since then, but he knew. But here's the thing about that. When I was writing this inventory, I did it during my lunch hour. I had a job, and I would work on it during my lunch hour. And I had a spiritual awakening, but it was not elegant. There was no harp music. Something awakened in me that was enraged. Something awakened in me that had been buried alive. I don't know if you've had this feeling, that I had a certain way, I led a double life. And it presented. It's like, no way, screw you, here I am, face it, know me. And like tore a hole in the paper of this thing. Maybe I cut a hole in my gut, I don't know. But this was a shocking connection to me. There was a real person in. This is a real person. You gave me that connection with myself. You've taught me to be honest. And honesty can feel ugly sometimes, but if it's sincere, it's okay. I did a nightly inventory recently, and I was so angry. Anger is a big thing that I work a program on. Anger feels like power, and I get afraid, and I want power. I'm a power seeker, and I've been a seeker all my life. You told me that, that's true. And you know what? I'm going to say something kind of rash. If you're new, I found it. I found it here. I didn't find the whole thing, but I found something. I found something in Alcoholics Anonymous. I never had enough. I never had enough to drink. I never had enough money. I never had enough love. Alcoholics Anonymous is the only enough I ever found. It's enough. I can rest here. I can put my baggage down. And then these steps are to get it out of the way. So I had that experience, and basically went 1 through 9 the best I could. There was a little disconnection in my sobriety because I changed sponsors. Nobody asked me, "Are you doing 10?" Nobody asked me, nor should they have necessarily. But as I said, I'm the kind of person, you ain't watching me. For a while there, I was supervised through 1 through 9, and then you were trusting me with the sobriety you gave me. And I took it right to the edge. I know I sat in meetings. I know they talked about the inventory. This is the spot check inventory. This is what Henry read, which is step 10. It says, there's 2 places. We admit we're powerless, and we admit to God, ourselves, and another human being. Well, I guess I was tired of admitting. I didn't want to admit. And then in the spot check, it says, we continue to take personal inventory. We continue to right wrongs. We continue to, we continue. And I just didn't continue either. And I didn't continue, but of course alcoholism does. It's progressive. And it continued. And things were going okay in my life for quite a while. I'm talking about 19 years. This is why I'm being a loud warning, whether you take it or not. I'm listening. That is important to me. I'd gotten married, as I told you. I had a nice job, nice place. So I had all that stuff given back to me. And as Bill talks about in this nice little book, The Best of Bill, he does an essay on humility. And he says that he had made an unrealistic self-appraisal of himself. And I did that too. And he said that he went back to his old drinking pattern. He didn't drink, but he went back to seeking money, property, and prestige. He put that before spiritual growth. And I did that too, is what apparently I did. I say this in retrospect. And so at 19 or 18 years of sobriety, I started having a problem. Now I ask myself, why would you do that? I bet you ask yourself sometimes, what's the deal? And I thought about it, and I thought about it. Here's what I think happened. I think the first time I came to AA, now look, I can't stop drinking, I can't quit drinking. Just to cut to the chase here, because I don't want you here all night with me, and you ain't staying, I know. You're going to dump me, I can tell. If I run over, you are out of here. And the closest, my favorite comparison is this. This is from a cowboy. I'm from Montana. I like cowboys, so maybe that's why I like this. This cowboy is from Nebraska. And what he said, and some of you probably heard this because there ain't nothing new in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Is he said his drinking was like a cat having sex with a skunk. He didn't get all he wanted, but he got all he could stand. It's a good one. That sums it up very nicely. Thank you very much. And so that's how I am. And I had this. I was trying to control my drinking, and I just ended up drinking behind my own back against my will. And I guess that's what you're doing here on this beautiful morning. Or I don't know what you're doing here. So, and another thing collided with that to propel me into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was looking out the window of the place where I was living one day, and I saw this guy walking down the street with a shotgun. I'm from Montana. I know a shotgun when I see one. And so when this guy crossed the street, came in the courtyard up the stairs to my door, I knew he had a shotgun. So I didn't open the door. I didn't know what to do, and my mind was racing, like Bill Wilson talks about in his story. I was thinking, I didn't feel like I knew this guy. And I was thinking, did I do something to this guy in a blackout? Is that what he's doing here? Is it the people I live with? Because I lived with those kind of people. And to be fair, they could say the same thing about me. I didn't know what he was doing there, and it was a desperate moment for me. I don't know what kind of violence was in your drinking. I had some. And so it was this moment or minute or something that felt like 1,000 years, you know? It reminds me of that moment or minute I got to where I would say to myself, I ain't doing this anymore. You know, you want to change your life. I ain't drinking like that. I ain't doing that. I'm not going with those people. This is going to be different. And then that just started to be the biggest lie in my life and never happened. I always blew it. And it got to the point, if I heard that, I just drink. You drown it. You got to kill it some way, you know. And so it felt like that long moment. And I don't know why, but here I am. Something distracted him, or maybe his mom called. I don't know. But, I heard the footsteps going down the stairs, and he walked out of my life. This is when I really wanted help. I don't know when that happened for you. And I'm not a helpable person. I'm not. People tried to help me before Alcoholics Anonymous. The difference between those folks, like the clerical people, the people with the little collar who are trying to help me with spiritual things and be more comfortable with that. The folks with the diploma on the wall that know about your thinking and your emotions, and they're going to help you with that. The folks with the gun and the badge, okay, and they're going to help you too. And okay, let's just go. Because you know what I knew about every single one of those people? Every single one of those people, underneath all that jazz, as far as I was concerned, you're just another lousy human being, just like me, you know. And you can't really help somebody like that. And I'm from an alcoholic home. It ain't why I'm alcoholic. But Bill says something in the family afterward. He says, children from alcoholic homes are pathetically cynical. And I think I was. So anyway, I'm not a helpable person. But here's the difference with Alcoholics Anonymous. I got no defense against the first drink. But I also, thank you, God, have no defense against Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new, I hope that you find that. And it's because people in AA said this to me. I feel patronized by people. I told you I hate them. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're like me. And what's even worse is you said to me, if you let me talk to you, see, I get to stay sober. You're helping me. You made it an even playing field for me. You said you ain't a charity case. And I had no defense against that. You didn't want anything from me. That saved my life. That and all the things that Alcoholics Anonymous is. And so I'm leafing through the newspaper a few days later, and something about Alcoholics Anonymous shows up in the community service section. It says something, as I recall, like, Alcoholics Anonymous, we hold hands, we pray, and you don't drink anymore. Well, to me, that sounded as corny as hell. But there was this other voice, And I've heard other people say this in AA. Howard P. says, there was a thought that came to him in the form of a voice. And this voice simply said, I want to go. A pathetic little voice, that little buried alive place, not mad, desperate, wants to live. And so that got the swing vote. So I go to my first meeting at Alcoholics Anonymous. And like I said, I ain't too good at getting help. I didn't know you. It was a nice meeting, this meeting I went to. A lady gave me her phone number. She said she'd sponsor me. I didn't ask her what that was. I was directed to the front of the meeting. I sat in the front of the meeting. When the meeting started, I got an attack of self-centered fear, just like in kindergarten. I don't fit in with people. They were looking at me in kindergarten, like you're looking at me, and I felt like they were thinking something bad about me, and I didn't like it. And there were like too many of them to kill. So there you are, It just was over right away. I am not a person who identifies in the places normal people do. We use that term, if you're new, in Alcoholics Anonymous, identification. And I think normal people identify in some way out there. I don't. I didn't even identify in my own family. They were nice-looking people. And when I share, I usually mention the fact that I was this tall, skinny thing with buck teeth and scraggly hair. It's a direct quote from a police report. Okay. I don't need the police report. I already know. I don't fit in. I know. I'm paying you. You're great. Right in the front there. Rock on. Okay. So anyway, I go to this meeting, sit in the meeting. I get scared. I was embarrassed. I was too embarrassed to get up and leave the meeting. And then I got mad. Then I shut down. Then I heard nothing. I don't remember hearing a thing. And at the end of that meeting, I get out of there. I don't have your damn book. I don't know your steps, don't know your traditions. I ain't calling that lady. That's how I get help. And maybe God got a little impatient with me. I don't know. Because here's what happened, and I don't care what you think of this. This is what I think of it. I went home, and it felt like a couple hours later, God landed like a comet in my living room. And here's how that went. The thing that I could not pay away, pray away, talk my way out of, negotiate with, outweight, that thing, obsession of the mind, was gone. I didn't have a drink. That's the only way that thing ever left town. I did not have a drink. And I knew it happened in that meeting, but no person in that meeting did that for me. There's something, there's an it there. And I realized the it lives in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know what it is. If you're new, you don't have to know what it is. It's like we're proof of it. It's like when Sharon C. speaks and talks about Casey, who said, he doesn't see God, but he sees the effects of God, like the wind. You show me the effect of God, and I thank you. Just sitting here, man. And so that happened. And I'm going to tell you something. I drank after that, but I'm going to tell you this. That moment was the dividing line of my life, before and after, forever and ever, amen. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since. And I appreciate that I recognized I was given, I believe, a moment of grace, not to take credit for that moment, not to think I wised up, not to think I had enough. That ain't what happened. That ain't what happened. That's not what's happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Self-knowledge avails us nothing, you said. I found out that is true. The reason I write these inventories, the reason that I report to you and talk to Marilyn, is because I bring this stuff forward. And this nightly inventory that I ended up doing it's like, here's the way I look at it now. It's like trash collection. I am qualified to collect the trash. I look at that nightly inventory like a police report, and I am looking for the suspect, which is my ego. Where did it show up? Where did it rip somebody off? Where did it lie? Where did it, and I am qualified to leave that at the door, but it can only be removed by my higher power, my God as I understand God, who shows up in his hazmat suit or something and carries it away, and that's the deal with that. And the thing that struck me about that inventory that I came to terms with when I finally started doing it is this thing at the very end We ask God to forgive. I ask God to forgive me, I believe it says, and tell me what corrective measures to take. I always bristled at that forgive thing. I hated it. It was residual from my interaction or reaction to religion. And then one day, I noticed there's a couple versions of the Lord's Prayer. And there's one that says, instead of trespasses, forgive us our debts. And I could wrap my head around that. That's a tangible. I've had trouble acquiring this spiritual program because it's intangible, and I just had trouble with it. But the debt thing I could get. Somebody mentioned the IRS. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Mike, they hadn't paid for 5 years. I hadn't paid for 8. And so if the IRS called me, I was thinking, if they said to me, you know what, Sia, we're going to forgive your debt. I don't know about you guys if you'd go for it. I would go for that. I would go for that, and quickly. And or, you got a mortgage, if the bank calls and says, we're going to forgive your mortgage. How about that? Would you go for that? And then I realized that God was offering me a line of credit, this spiritual line of credit, for the gap that I have, where I want to love you, where I want to do something that makes me feel good, where I want to hang in there. And I ain't got the cash. I ain't got the payola. I ain't got the spiritual wherewithal. And God covers the gap for giving. That was beautiful to me. That is beautiful to me. And so I can embrace that. That is so beautiful to me. And if you're new, I hope you find your way. I hope you talk to folks. Here's all these folks that's probably intimidating as hell. But here's the thing. You're just like me. You're my mirror. And I can talk to you about how do you parlay this? How do you work this? I may be shy. I may get scared. Who gives a damn? I eventually get there because I'm sober and I live here and I feel this. And I have to work a program or I cannot stand my alcoholism, drunk or sober. We say we got a living problem. That means drunk or sober. I'm living, that's a problem. Boils down to that, man. It does for me. It does. And we have this thing, be right or be comfortable. And somebody in the Pacific group boiled it down even more for me. They said, you want to be right or you want to live? I want to live. I want to live. I am so grateful to be wrong. Somebody else said that. I love being wrong now. This is a spiritual awakening for me, to be willing to be wrong. I ain't going to defend my ego to the death. And this is what the inventory process helps me nail that bastard. Pardon my language. Forget it, ego. I'm not sorry. And it keeps the obsession, and I cannot manage that obsession. That's impossible. America talked about the person with the peanut allergy. So the peanaholic. That's the difference between me and the peanaholic. A peanaholic, they take this serious. You know what I mean? They eat a peanut, their throat swells up, they die. Okay, they know this. I have this part of my mind, when I sleep, it erases that information. But the peanaholic goes in a store and they have a magnifying glass, I guess. And they fan out and they look at the ingredients on. I ain't got that. That's the difference. It's obsession. The obsession, the problem centers in the mind. That ain't located in a bottle. That ain't located in the past. That's here, right now, right up here with me. It just ain't drunk. This is a living problem. Thank you for that information. I didn't know. And so I'm going to tell you my little sad tale, what I used to be like, what happened, what I'm like now because of this inventory. I got to 19 years, and I started having the obsession to kill myself. Now, this scared me. But I was working with it. I was working with it. And I put a knife in the bathroom. I noticed that. And it is funny now. Tell you it wasn't funny then. Because you know what? I drank behind my own back. And I realized I was going to kill myself behind my own back. That scared the living crap out of me. And some other things started to happen. And here's what happened. Because I didn't do these inventories, because I wasn't current, because my alcoholism got ahead of me, I ended up being suicidal. My husband left. I became violent. The cops got involved in my sobriety. I'm going to give you a small slice of that. Anger, as I told you, is my problem. It escalated, man. And I live in West LA. I started getting out of my car, helping the other drivers with their driving. I don't have a license to do that, but, just my part for improving the community or something. And so I'll give you a couple examples. I got out of my car. The first time I distinctly remember, I was on the phone with a sponsee. How cool is that, right? And I got out of my car because the lady in front of me wasn't doing it right, And I put up with it as long as I was going to put up with it. So I got my sponsee on the phone, get out of the car. I'm going up to that lady. I'm going to kill her. And her little dog, too, And she kind of felt me or noticed me, I guess. And she got the window up in time. So she got away. And I told Marilyn about this. And Marilyn said, Sia, people in L.A. are carrying guns. Somebody's going to shoot you because you come up next to them all of a sudden, that side of the... And I knew she was right. This other time I got out of the car and I smacked this guy's car with my hand, and he thought I'd run into his car, so he called the cops. And that time, the cops asked me. They sorted it out. They didn't arrest me, and they said, "Can you just stay in your car?" I know the right answer to that. I bet you do too. But I also knew, no, I cannot. I can't do it. You're the only people who understand this. I was powerless over it. And if you're new, that's a reason, but it ain't an excuse. I'm powerless over alcohol. That doesn't mean I'm helpless. There's stuff I can do to help God help me be sober. Okay, so then the coup de grace to this whole thing. I was in a busy intersection in Los Angeles, a big old busy intersection, and I was in the left turn aisle. And the person in front wasn't doing it right. And I found myself like coming out of a blackout, out of my car, walking up there. Car door open, engine running. I go up to the front of the aisle, and it's this young guy in a convertible. He looked kind of surprised. And I hauled off and I slugged this guy with all my might, right in his big old beefy shoulder, And it just got so quiet. Just like time stopped or something is how it felt to me. Everybody was looking at me, including me. And this guy sized me up. I mean, he could have mopped the intersection with me, He just didn't want to engage. I think he knew I was crazy. So he just made his left turn. Maybe he was an Al-Anon. Who knows? And I love Al-Anon. I mean no disrespect there. And he did a nice job, too. I misjudged him. And, everybody was left looking at me, including me. So I slunk back to my car and went home. And here's the thing. When I went home, this little thought tap danced across my mind. And I bet this has happened to you. And it said, Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't work. That's impossible. I'm too close to you to buy that, but I heard it. I did wonder, well, maybe it just is for drinking. I didn't buy that. On my best day, I still know I didn't quit drinking. I can't quit drinking. I am quitted each day. It's a day at a time. And then another thought entered my mind. It's like Howard says again, where a thought becomes a voice. And it said to me, maybe you missed something. Well, that got my attention. And I don't know why, but I went and I got the third step down. And I speak French. I read it in French because I'm not that fluent in French, and I had to think about every word. Because I don't know if you're in meetings and you're hearing how it works and you're like thinking about your laundry, and I had to think about every word. And here's what I found in that. It describes the person who has not worked the step. I was that person. It talks about a person who's the master of their own life. It talks about this person who loves the few and hates the many. Ding, ding, ding. Well, so I hadn't worked step 3. Okay, so I back up to step 2, the crazy person step that Marilyn covered. Clearly, if you're getting out of your car, you're crazy. So that didn't take long. Then I end up at 1. I hadn't had a drink, but it's that dash that my life had become unmanageable. And again, can you stay in your car? I know the right answer. I said the words, but clearly I had not really done that. And that was shocking to me. And then I looked at the maintenance steps. I was supposed to be in maintenance sobriety with 20 years in sobriety wherever I was. 10, 11, and 12. Now I was working the hell out of 12. And 11A, 11B. 11A, I was praying my butt off at this point because I was scared. So I wasn't working 10. I'm working half of 11. I'm working 1.5. Do the math. We say half measures avail us nothing. I had nothing with a hole in it. I didn't have enough to live. What I know today is I can die of alcoholism without ever taking another drink. I know that now. And that was an important thing for me to learn. And I was a come-behind kid. I started working that step. And that step has saved my life. It's part of the kit of Alcoholics Anonymous that saves my life, And I don't have too much time left here. So I'm going to mention the spot check, because the other part of the loud warning is I didn't start doing a spot check till July 6th of this year. That's 38 years of sobriety. I didn't start doing it. I read it. I heard it. Maybe you were doing it. And I did it because I joined about 100 women who were going through the big book, doing the steps. That's when I did the steps. And, the Pacific Group, we ain't pikers there. We get on it. But these women were killers. They were like, I had to do one every day, a nightly inventory, and I had to go to 2 meetings they had, and I had to do readings, and I had to go to this, unbelievable. And I would sit there and think, I got 38 years of sobriety. I don't have to do this shit. But, you make a commitment. You taught me that, so I stayed the course. That was wonderful. And this spot check, see, I didn't get this. I get disturbed during the day. I'm going to wait till the night because it gets a lot of momentum going. You know what I'm saying? It's like a little baby being in dirty diapers all day. Awful. Awful. And I started doing it, and I was shocked. And then I got weird about it. We can overdo. I can't overdo this, but I'm telling you. If I didn't have a piece of paper to do the spot check, I was like tattooing it on my arm. I was like a graffiti wall, get it out of me, get it out of me. And I would find the self, which is so elusive, or the ism, or the ego, whatever you guys call it. I would find that thing, and it would free me. It's like the motif of Bill in the phone booth or Bill in the bar in the Mayflower Hotel. I got a choice. And I can stand outside that bar, not doing this spot check, feeling crappy about something. And it comes out of nowhere, and it's illogical. Alcoholism ain't logical. Alcoholism can't stand up to the truth. And I would find the truth there. And then the most important part that I still will almost forget to put in is, please remove God. And I immediately go in the phone booth, which is, you immediately, it says, help somebody else. And if I'm in the middle of something, like I can say a prayer for you, I can say a prayer for Larcene, if I can't call you, I can do something. And the thing works. It's so crazy that I would wonder if it works. But that's my alcoholism. It damn well works. And so that's been a wonderful thing. I'm going to tell you something very quickly. Now I'm going to steal some time. What the hell? Here's this turnaround for me. Recently, I got into a relationship with somebody. And I had big ideas there behind my back. It's interesting that it coincided with me going through the steps, because there were parts of me that were still hiding out. And I approached this, I thought, in a very open-handed way. But here's what was really going on. This guy was everything I thought I was looking for, and so I approached it like he was big game and I was going to bag him. You know what I mean? It embarrasses me to say that. And you know what? I didn't have a big enough gun, okay? And I felt so humiliated. And you know, humiliation is an interesting thing. Merton talks about this. If you're new, you know we have outside readings. Merton is not AA, but he says this very cool thing that Bill also talks about, humility. But he says, here's what it is. He says, the spiritual life is not complicated, but it's difficult. And it's difficult because when we are humiliated, we want to kill the thing, hate the thing that humiliates us. That's exactly how I felt. I wanted to kill my former husband, and I wanted to make this guy so wrong. He did nothing wrong. You know, do I have a right to choose who I want to be with? Hell yeah. Did he? Hell no. You know, that ain't right. That ain't right. I know that ain't right. Damn you, Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And so I worked my program. It ain't because I'm cool. God worked the program with me, and I ended up being friends with this guy. And here's the point. He called me because he's fairly well known, and his recovery is well known, and somebody contacted him on Facebook, and this guy was at the jumping off place. That was this friend of mine's assessment. And so he was talking to me about it. We talked it through. And then I said to him, well, where does the guy live? Because this guy lives back east. And he said, well, he lives in the same town, interestingly enough, that my former husband lives. So we did like this 12-step effort, the three of us. And I want to ask you something, which is so obvious, but I'm going to ask you. Do you think it was more important for me to get my way with that relationship, or to work a program so these two men could come together and give somebody the chance that so many of the speakers here spoke of so eloquently this weekend, a chance at what we got here, a shot at this? I think that's more important. That is my primary purpose. And I got to be a part of that in spite of myself. And I'm going to just close with this. There's this great story I love. We got great stories. I love this story. Maybe you heard this story. It's a guy, he was still drinking, and he was kind of on thin ice with his neighbors. And then his dog shows up with the neighbor's pet rabbit in his mouth, and it's dead. So this is like the last straw with the neighbors, he's figuring. And he does something which I probably would do. He shampoos the rabbit, he blows it dry, and in the dark of night, he goes in the backyard, and he throws it over the fence into the neighbor's yard. And I bet you're going to guess what happens next. The next day, the neighbor comes over and knocks on his door. And he says, can I talk to you for a minute? And of course, I know how I would be thinking. And he says, you know, I want to ask you something. Our pet rabbit died yesterday, and we buried it. And today, it showed up in the yard. Do you know anything about this? It's too good, isn't it? And here's what that story reminds me of. That guy was working on the wrong problem. And that's me without a program. I'm working on the wrong problem. I'm working on something God needs to work on. This is agnostic. And I didn't understand agnosticism. It ain't a belief thing. I believe in God. I absolutely trust God with my sobriety. I don't worry about that because I'm here with you. But then there are other things in my life that I don't trust God with. You know, I don't trust God with. And these are the things I'm learning with you to give to God. The things I can't do. The spiritual gap where I ask God for giving me something I can't cover. And I'll end now. I promise I will. You will not have to rush the podium. I was in a Q&A a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked me, because I've been in general service, I've done some commitments like all of us, secretary and sponsor. They said, what do you think is the most important commitment in Alcoholics Anonymous? And I wonder what you all would say. And here, I said something I didn't mean to say. Do you ever do that? Like God kind of goes, this is what I think anyway. I said, I think the most important commitment in Alcoholics Anonymous is waking up sober. And it seemed like an odd thing to say, but I feel like it's true. You don't have to agree with me, because here's the thing, if you're new here, everything we're doing here, everything we're doing in meetings is so you can have the ability to wake up sober like us. And when I wake up sober, everything that day comes from that. Everything I do, my ability to be here, my ability to be of service to my family, to be a worker among workers, to be all the things one hopes to be in their life, in a sober life, happens because I wake up sober. And that is the boiled down principle for me in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I really thank you all for inviting me here. It's such a privilege. I love you, Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks for the 12-step club.
Now let's close with the Lord's Prayer, and please can we end with amen. Our Father,